Welcome everyone. Happy Monday. I'm the Grace Strega and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for today, Monday, October 21st, 2024. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? May I please have the first two cards in our 5-card spread. First two cards we are starting our day off with today are the Moon card and the World in its reversal. Let's talk a little bit about this full moon hangover because one of the things that we're effectively seeing right now, and we were talking a lot about this in our last reading, a lot of that Mars energy, it can be difficult. It can bring up a lot of stuff, right? A lot of that better out than in kind of modality. But that ability of recognizing and identifying and allowing some of that sense to come forward, this is what's helping. And we were even describing this, that ability to allow oneself to move it into a space or place of productivity. This is challenging. Like if this feels rough right now, I want you to give yourself a lot of energetic credit because it's not easy, right? It's a lot of unpacking emotionally, personally, and it is having a different impact depending on where you find yourself on the frequency cycles. Now, for masculine and feminine energy, deep within divine union, this has a lot to do with that energetic sense of compassion we were speaking about. Because that sense or space of feeling that all one can do is everything that one can do. Putting a lot of focus on that. It's hard to stay energetically grounded throughout that, right? Because we see that for so much of that energy deep within divine union, what does that nature of compassion almost dictate to a certain extent? That feeling of wanting to give forth, never feeling like what you're giving forth is energetically enough. What do we see is happening right now? Deep within divine union, the energy acting as clear mirror for one another, articulating and attenuating to each other and saying, your exhaustive point, right? You have to find the energetic balance, right? That sense or that nature of compassion that calls upon you and that feeling of wanting to give forward. Prioritizing what creates a sense of energetic balance within you is not only important, it's energetically necessary. Because in order to do that, that allows you to be more energetically effective going forward. And sometimes that can feel very topsy-turvy, right? Because that's the energy that feels the counterintuitive pull of saying that the rest that feels like it's oppositional towards what you want to give forward to is actually a part of it. So we see even now that for a lot of that energy, navigating that space and place right now, this is what is very helpful. Because these are the counterparts that are energetically providing compassion to one another in that energetic process. And we were talking about this last week when we were doing our reading, and that sense of like a lot of this energy being like, everyone deserves to rest except me, of course, except me. Because that sense or that space of working tirelessly is one that like requires that care of the energetic person. And so for the energy right now, deep within divine union, putting forward that sense or space of compassion towards one another, this is helping the energy find and maintain a point of balance. Now, for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now, this is more of like, I want to say, it feels like you're doing work that's counter opposition, and like sometimes like it feels counter oppositional to energetic process, because sometimes when you're rebuilding a process, you have to take everything apart to be able to put it back together again, right? You have to take everything apart to put it back together again. And so we see that a lot of this energy right now coming into divine union, that's why we were describing for so much of this energy right now, someone saying like, how's it going? And someone being like, awful, but doing it with a smile on their face, right? Because that sense or that space of being able to mutually take something apart in order to put it back together again, This is that, like, it's one of those moments right now that for some of the energy in the divine union, it could feel like the partnership, it feels messy. There's like a lot on the table, right? There's a lot of energetic unpacking that is happening, right? And you're looking at being like, oh no, what have we done? Because it's a lot of this, like, work in the intimacy space. And I just got to say this. And I feel like a lot of the energy right now that is building into the process of coming into divine union, intimacy is messy. Intimacy is a mess. It makes a big mess. It gets all over the place, right? And so we see even now that for some of that energy, this is the energy that's almost articulating and attenuating and describing coming into partnership and being like, it's a total mess. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if they know what they're doing. But I know one thing. We're doing it together. We're doing it together. Right? We're doing it together. And so a lot of this energy coming into divine union right now is going, what's going on? They go, I have no clue, but we're doing it together. And that's that sense of saying we're doing it together is becoming a lot of the energetic tie that binds a lot of these connections that are moving forward right now. Because that sense or space of relearning, doing something in a way that you haven't before, but feeling the wholeness and integrity of doing it with someone that is mutually invested in going on that journey of discovery together. This is a lot of energy right now that feels like it's confusing, but at the same time, what is confusion? What is confusion that feels like it's on a trajectory? Learning. Confusion on a trajectory is learning. So a lot of this energy doesn't feel confused because there's trajectory to the confusion. So they're saying, I'm not necessarily sure what we're doing, but we're learning as we go, right? So that's a lot of that. There's a lot of that energy here, but it's hard because there's a lot of this energetic unpacking that we're seeing right now. While for a lot of the energy right now in separation, what are we effectively seeing that's occurring right now for a lot of that energy that is in separation? A lot of the energy in separation is describing the fact and saying to another, I had to move away from an energetic situation. Why? Because it was too confusing, and it seemed like it was confusion for no particular purpose. It felt like it was confusion for the sake of confusion. And that's the energy saying, again, this is the energy articulating and saying the thing that we can provide one another in partnership is clarity, is trajectory. And so this is a lot of the energy that's describing in separation, that feeling of releasing frustration, potentially even articulating to someone a situation or scenario, and being able to say to another and saying, you know, there was a lot of confusion and I can handle energetic confusion, but there was no trajectory. It just felt like the whole thing was energetically confusing. So we see even now, like, that's a moment that a lot of energy right now in separation is coming into a process of release, in relationality of saying that, you know, and that's the energy that basically says, I might not necessarily know the answers or the reason why, but that's the point. That's the energy going, if energy is in a confusing state, you can't necessarily move into it and try to get clarity, because that's the difference of the confusion that feels like it's on trajectory versus the energy that feels like it's just confusion for confusion's sake. So a lot of energy right now I'm seeing is kind of going through that process of releasing anything from the past that was energetically confusing, because it felt like there was no trajectory to the confusion. Center card in today's spread. One card to clarify, please. We got our girlfriend here. We got our Queen of Cups in its upright. Bearing in mind, this is not based on gender. This is going to have a different effect right now on masculine and feminine energy. Now, for feminine energy, I just see that there's a lot of energy of feminine in separation right now, making peace with energetically confusing situations. I can just see a lot of the feminine energy, like navigating some spaces and places of energetic confusion and being like even in their own previous journey work and being like, yeah, that was so confusing. And that's the energy saying, I release things that are energetically confusing, because this is the feminine energy in a space of emotional balance and separation. We love this right now. This is beautiful. I feel like there's a lot of this feminine energy in separation right now that's making peace to a certain extent. And how is the feminine energy making peace? Feminine energy isn't looking at something confusing and going, I'm going to go back there and try to figure out what all that confusion was. No, the feminine energy is going, if something's energetically confusing and doesn't have a trajectory, like that's not, like there's no direction there. You know, like there's no direction. Like if there's no direction, you can handle, you can handle something energetically confused. This is a lot of the feminine, even articulating someone saying, I can navigate, much like we saw the feminine saying to masculine over the last few weeks prior to the full moon, right? Feminine reaffirming their own sense of patience. The feminine saying, let's be clear. The feminine saying, I am energetically patient with energy I am working with, not energy I'm waiting upon, right? The energy navigating and facilitating, building forth with masculine, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, that says we are doing something energetically together. And this is a lot of the feminine releasing in separation and saying that anything that feels like it was in the past that was just energetically confusing, that's the feminine saying the confusion sometimes feels like it's the energetic point, right? That's the feminine energy saying, like, that's the energy going. I can see a lot of the feminine energy looking back on their past and going, is that something that was intentionally confusing? Or was that something that someone did not know which direction they were headed upon? And this is a lot of the feminine energy articulating and healing and saying, you know what? It doesn't really matter, right? Because regardless of whether something is intentionally confusing, or whether someone doesn't know which direction they're headed, it's the same thing, right? It's the same thing. It doesn't get it doesn't get anywhere, right? And this is the feminine going like, I'm fine with that. Like that's a feminine going, like even trying to introspect as to the reason why. I feel like a lot of the feminine energy is just kind of in that space of saying, the feminine's basically saying in separation, if I know my energetic trajectory, I expect and anticipate masculine shall as well. And for masculine energy, I see that a lot of the masculine energy is articulating this as well in separation. Except I want to say this has less to do with trajectory externally, so much as it may have to do with masculine articulating the trajectory of the feminine emotions, right? Because if that's the feminine energy, right? If the feminine energy is not in a space with being able to articulate upon their emotions, coming into a place of balance. We described that there's a lot of the energy of the masculine in separation that feels somewhat tempest-tossed, right? And what does tempest-tossed feels like? That's a masculine energy, never feeling the sense of safety or comfort because the emotionality of the feminine becoming a place of volatility so much that they're not sure what to energetically expect, so they don't feel energetically safe. So what are these energies both articulating that they're seeking from one another? Consistency. Emotional balance. Feminine is saying to masculine in separation, as long as I know where our destination is, I can always create that modality of emotional stability. Masculine in separation saying to feminine, so long as you can create, so long as I'm with a feminine that's in that modality of being able to navigate through their own emotions, to be able to be prescriptive towards them in relationality to what they need, instead of feeling like they're giving them the emotions as a question that needs to be solved. Both of these energies are effectively coming into alignment to a certain degree and saying, I'm seeking that emotional consistency from the counterpart. So even now, I feel like there is a lot of alignment coming through right now in relationality to this specific full moon cycle, which is really nice to see. Because again, especially with some of that Aries energy, again, not looking at it so much as warlike, but looking at more so much as childlike, we see that there's a lot of possibility right now of new cycles starting and reinvention. Now, continuing to get clarification for energy deep coming into divine union right now, this probably feels like a mess. This probably feels like a mess, but what is happening right now? It's a joyful mess, right? It's a joyful mess because for a lot of that energy right now, I see that this is the energy in coming into divine union that's articulating and feeling like they're healing from previous experiences that were just messy, just confusing and messy because of the lack of energetic understanding, as opposed to feeling like, again, the messiness that has a trajectory. So we see even now that for both masculine and feminine, a lot of that same conversation that's occurring, much like the energy deep within divine union, because feminine is effectively articulating that space or that place. One moment. A lot of that work that we're seeing right now, like that ability of articulating and identifying, this is the masculine energy that is building into emotional security and stability with feminine. And that's a process, right? We talked a lot about that. We talked that there may be a lot of masculine energy that's saying to feminine, I need you to be patient with me because this is a process. And I'm learning how to do something that I haven't before. And in the process of learning how to do something that one hasn't before, this is a lot of the masculine energy saying, I may stumble on this way. I may not necessarily be perfect in that directionality. But a lot of that energy right now of the feminine articulating to the masculine is saying, again, the same message that we saw last week. So long as we are prioritizing and doing this together, my patience becomes limitless, right? Because that is the difference of the patience of the feminine waiting upon versus the difference of the feminine working with. Now, for masculine and feminine deep within divine union right now, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, a lot of this work that I'm seeing right now, deep within divine union, is just navigating and coming into a space of prioritizing care of the self. There's a lot of this conversation here. And it is having a different impact on masculine and feminine energy. Bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Because we see even now that for a lot of that, I want to say for a lot of the masculine energy right now, deep within divine union, that sense or that space of putting a lot of effort and energetic care towards feminine. Like a lot of the masculine has to even recognize and realize. I see a lot of the feminine that's trying to heal masculine and saying to masculine counterpart, again, the same message. Your intrinsic value isn't contingent upon what you bring forth. You are energetically priceless simply in the space or state of who you are. While for a lot of the masculine energy, I see that a lot of that message that the masculine is saying to feminine is the prioritization of the self as opposed to that feeling of needing to serve those around them. This is a lot of the masculine saying, making sure that you're giving that same compassion that you extend to others back to yourself in kind. That's not energetically selfish. that is balanced. I can even see the masculine saying that's not the energy of the feminine being selfish. That's the masculine saying, I want you to care for yourself as much as I care for you. Next two cards in our 5-card spread for today, before we start drilling down into these cards, is we have here, we've got our Death card in combination with our 10 of Swands in its reversal. Now, one of the things that we're seeing, again, this has been a very it's been a very transformative full moon to a certain extent here. I'm just seeing and recognizing there's a lot of transformation energy that's occurring around this new energetic cycle. And we see even now that for a lot of the energy deep within divine union, that sense or that space of making energetic changes, I want to say a lot of that work that we're seeing right now is, and I want to say it's a little bit back and forth here, because a lot of that energy, I want to say, is reprioritizing what that point of energetic balance is, right? And that reprioritization point, it's creating it's creating those spaces of change, if you will. But also, and I even see even now, like a lot of this energy right now is working very tirelessly. And because it feels like there's a limitation point that is almost saying it will be easier after that point. And so, it's this is giving like so much of this, like, like that last, like that energetic race until like the end of the cycle to a certain extent. Because I feel even now like a lot of that sense of tightening that's occurring here. This is a lot of that energy that's like trying to get things done, trying to do as much as they can do beyond a certain point. So we see even now like a lot of that energy is recognizing and identifying what those plans are to make things energetically easier. And so even there, I see a lot of those changes that are happening. But these are like negative and positive changes because, again, this is the prioritization of what one can do and when one can do it. And in that space or in that place, this is a lot of the energy that says that the prioritization point isn't in trying to get everything energetically done, but prioritizing the self in the process, staying effectively like balanced, if you will. While for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union, I just keep seeing that a lot of this energy right now, and I'm going to say this again, if you're coming into divine union and you're seeing aspects of the self that you could not see before, I don't want you to be so destabilized by them that it puts you in a place of energetic devastation. Because you should be feeling a moment of celebration. I need to point this out. If you have and recognize a limitation that you could not see before, it can feel devastating, but it's in fact a celebration point. Because that celebration point is seeing something in a way that you couldn't see it before, right? And it's in the observation of being able to see something in a way that you couldn't see it before that allows for that modality of breakthrough, right? So even now, we see that a lot of that energy coming into divine union, this is either the energy that is looking back on past situations, something that they may have put a lot of effort and energy in trying to fix, and they're healing as they're coming into divine union because they're now looking at something and they're having that moment of saying, there was no fixing that, right? That was a place of maybe taking on too much energy, of outside energy, of trying to fix something that was not in one's own power to fix. So there's balance in that moment of transformation, but there's a lot of grief that wells up in the process. While for a lot of that energy, if these are modalities where you're working on breaking those barriers of intimacy, and you're having that sense of feeling the security of building forth with an energetic counterpart, that wherein you feel that it's safe to do so, that moment or that recognition point in seeing those limitations in the past, there's a lot of energy that is, like, I want to say, grieving for the self to a certain degree. Because it's in that grieving of the self that you energetically heal, because you're recognizing that you've reached a modality where you see something in yourself that you couldn't see before. While for a masculine and feminine energy in separation right now, the difficulty that I'm seeing right now in separation, and it's more of the same that we were seeing, a lot of energetic discernment as it relates to new partnership is what I'm seeing right now. Because I just keep seeing that a lot of the energy in separation, feeling to a certain extent that there's no greater violation than the feeling of having one's own time energetically wasted, right? And so that's why we see that for so much of this energy right now that prioritizes upon the manifestation goals, having that moment or having that modality of recognizing and reaffirming what those manifestation goals are, I see even now, like there's a lot of that energetic discernment that's occurring, even at the start of new partnerships here. Because I see even now, like a lot of the lessons that are coming through for energy and separation is not waiting to articulate upon what those manifestation goals are, but making sure that there's energetic alignment from the onset for the sake of identifying and recognizing, and almost again having that, I want to say, having that, putting that conscientious care in another energetic person's time. This is the energy saying, I'd rather something energetically stop now than proceed forward, because that's the energy that says, that holds one another to such a high degree of sincerity and appreciation, that this is the energy that says, I value and recognize that I don't like that sense of energetic like choice is such that I want to make sure that we're moving together in relationality to having the same goals. Prior to even beginning, I see even like now, prior to something even beginning, I see a lot of this energy saying, prior to beginning, let's make sure we're on the same energetic page. And that is the gift that we can give ourselves going forward, because that's the energy that says, I don't want to overburden you with something that feels like it's moving you in a direction that's oppositional to the one that you desire to go towards. Continuing to get clarification between our moon card in combination with our world card in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our magician card. So I gotta say, a lot of this energy in separation right now, I want to say, really building into that place of deep appreciation and building into that space. I just see a lot of that articulation point in recognizing and identifying and speaking about the nature of energetic relationships. And a lot of that, I want to say that that's coming through right now from a sense or a space of conciliation. Like there's a lot of this energy that I'm just seeing right now that's being very focused and mindful in relationality towards what they're trying to build with one another, for the sake of, again, feeling that sense of, I want to say, and this is also really important too, because this is also talking towards that sense of self-understanding that we were articulating upon previously as well. Because a lot of this energy right now coming out of energetic cycles in separation, where someone potentially articulated that they desired something, but we're not in the space or place of being able to navigate what is required to do that energetic work, right? We see that even now. There's some of this frustration that both masculine and feminine energy are letting go of. The difference between, for feminine, the masculine that particularly potentially articulates what they desire in partnership, but isn't willing to energetically relinquish their own autonomy in order to build towards with a feminine as an energetic partner. For feminine, that ability of articulating and identifying that desire to build forth with masculine in such a way, feminine, like feminine, masculine, potentially healing from the feminine that articulates that desire of building forth with masculine, but still navigating that space of being able to articulate upon the emotions in such a way that they're able to articulate what it is that they need from a positive way, instead of kind of giving the emotions to the masculine like a puzzle to solve. And so we see even now that for both of these energies, that sense of energetic discernment is being articulated and identified by a level or degree of self-awareness. Because this is the energy that recognizes that our own ability to understand the self helps fortify and build our own connections. Because in understanding the self, are we able to bring forth ourselves in a place of clarity towards those that we try to build relationships with. And we're also energetically mindful of being present in terms of what they need in the process. So there's a lot of, I want to say, this is heavy energy here, but there's a lot of hopefulness that I'm seeing right now, particularly for a lot of the energy that is in separation. Now, for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now, a lot of this energy right now, I mean, like a lot of this energy, I see a lot of this messiness here. It looks like a mess, but it feels like a good mess. It feels like a positive mess, right? Because this is like the energetic uncluttering that allows for the sense of building forth in a new way, right? So if there's a lot of energy right now that is like coming into divine union and someone's saying, how's it going? And being like, I don't know, but like, I don't know, but we're doing it together and we're figuring it up and we're figuring it out as we go along. This is a lot of energy that feels like they've kind of like dumped their stuff in the floor to a certain extent and are now kind of putting those pieces together in the process. And in the process of doing that, that's the energy that says, again, what is the affirmation of the energy coming into divine union right now? The energy is effectively saying to one another, I don't know what we're doing, but we're doing it together. I don't know what we're doing, but we're doing it together. And a lot of that work, feeling that investment, is the energy in the space of the divine union, because that's the energy that says we are creating something from nothing. We are prioritizing the connection. We are making the accommodations necessary, because that is the prioritization point. And for a lot of the energy right now, healing the internal things within, feminine and masculine. Feminine looking back on things that they may have felt like they were trying to fix that they couldn't because it wasn't something within their own ability to fix. Masculine, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Working on that sense or that space of recognizing and identifying how one's own limitations in relationality to intimacy may have been a barrier, but now building that space of safety with the feminine to such a degree that you're able to do a bit of that unpacking. Even now, potentially a lot of breakthroughs that are occurring. Masculine and feminine deep within divine union right now. A lot of that, like taking the difficulty and just turning it into positive. It's a lot of the same energy that we see that is and this is good. The fact that we see the energy coming into divine union right now, so much in alignment with the energy in deep within divine union, because this is the energy going, we're doing what we got to do. We're prioritizing as we need to go. You know, like it's like a lot of that like immediacy that's here right now. But it's also feeling like, again, like it feels like it's moving in a productive way. Continuing like that sense or that affirmation, like it's gonna get done. It's like it's gonna get done. It's just a question of if, it's just a question of how and like when. Continuing to get clarification between our world card in its reversal in combination with our Queen of Cups in its upright. Can I get one card to clarify, please? Clarification coming through right now with our Judgment card in its reversal. Now, for a lot of the energy deep within divine union right now, and I need to stress this is the energy that is being very flexible with one another in the process of building forth together, right? Because I see even now that a lot of that, like a lot of that adjustability, like there's a lot of that sense or that space of making the energetic accommodations necessary that allow for what feels like it energetically works. And that's difficult, right? Because I told you even here, a lot of that energy right now, doing that work deep within divine union, like it's requiring a lot of like momentary accommodations. It's requiring a lot of momentary adjustments. But we see even now that ability of doing so is what's effectively allowing for those points of breakthrough, because this is the energy that I want to say is navigating with one another and being flexible in relationality to what one another needs. Now, for masculine and feminine coming into divine union, This is that reconsideration point that is making everything feel so messy. Because if these are energies that are learning together, like they're learning new processes, that sense or that space of doing something that feels counterintuitive and then suddenly having a breakthrough within it. What happens when you do something that's counterintuitive and suddenly you have a breakthrough within it? It requires a sense of reconsidering everything that you did prior, wherein you weren't doing it that way. So a lot of energy right now, I see that there's a lot of energy coming into divine union that's changing their mind upon things, but in positive ways, potentially doing something in a way that they haven't before, that was feeling energetically uncomfortable, but now they're seeing like some of that breakthrough that's giving. It's like I was describing this yesterday, like last time we were reading, it was like, right? It's like it's like the acquired knowledge or the acquired understanding that creates that sense of reorientation. So there's a lot of that that's potentially happening right now. A lot of learning for the energy coming into divine union. Now, for energy and separation right now, like I just keep seeing a lot of this energy and separation navigating. I want to say there was a lot of closure that occurred right now over the Mars full moon in relationality to past experiences. Because I see even now that for so much of that energy, and I want to describe this. We spoke about the energetic volatility of an experience, energy seeking consistency. And so I see even now, like there's a lot of that energy that felt like that modality of coming into the Aries full moon was a closure point, because that's the energy that almost looks towards something and says, if that sense of separation being navigated is what like creates a space of change within someone, like that's the energy that almost looks towards one another and says in separation that is not characteristic of an energetic change. That almost articulates the volatility of a connection, right? Because that's the energy that says like it should not take that much to be able to have something change, right? That's the energy that says that point of consistency and adaptability is something, and that's why we utilize the term modality. It should exist within the context of a space. So we see even now like a lot of that energy articulating and even saying about in separation, and articulating and saying that that's not energy that is waiting for someone to energetically change. That is someone that's come into separation because they gave something everything they could. They put all of their application of patience towards it. And anything that were to change beyond that doesn't feel like the express space of a healthy energetic connection, but something that feels like almost something that's volatile simply in the space of what it energetically took to come into a space of healing, right? So a lot of that energy right now, I want to say, masculine and feminine energy in separation, like this is feeling, I want to say it's feeling like this is a pretty like positive here. This is feminine feeling very energetically balanced and at peace in relationality to the perception of the past. Masculine recognizing and identifying, and I want to say being adaptable to the changes within, right? Like the changes within, which is really important here. Because this is not, I want to say, this is not these cards in combination. This isn't masculine energy that's looking and trying to accommodate, make adjustments outside of the self to build into healthy partnership. This is the masculine that's going inward first to be able to arrive towards the feminine in a way that they have like I even see this as the masculine. I was saying like, I am also in a space or place where I am trying to learn. So this is very positive. Continuing to get clarification between masculine and feminine energy, between our Queen of Cups in its upright and our Death card in its upright. Can I get one card to clarify, please? Clarification coming through right now with our Ace of Wands in its upright. Beautiful cards today. And I want to say today's a really beautiful energy in relationality to communication. And inspiration. Like we've got some beautiful and it is having a different impact on masculine and feminine energy. I see a lot of the masculine energy right now, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Kind of being in that space of, again, I want to say, I'm hearing like active listening. You know what I mean? Like to a certain extent. Because even here, there's something about that renewed investment of perception. I see a lot of that energy of the masculine being in that space of recognizing and identifying. Like what one can change within the self, like where that journey takes them. For a lot of the feminine energy, I feel like the piece that's coming through in some of these energetic communications is the fact that I see feminine being in a space or place in separation where they're being very natural. They're not necessarily putting on a lot of artifice, because I just keep seeing that for a lot of the feminine energy in separation. And this is why I want to say that these are different journeys right now, but they're very much in alignment. Feminine's in that modality of saying, if being my natural self moves energy away from me, well, that's divine protection, right? Like that's the energy of the feminine almost saying to a certain extent that's the energy of the feminine saying, if something about being my authentic self moves someone energetically away from me, that is divine protection, because that's my highest self. Like you're not gonna like what else you see if you don't like what you got there. Like it's a lot of that. It's a lot of that there. So we just see a lot of the feminine kind of just like I want to say, like being very candid, but also becoming very comfortable with being candid in this way, right? While for masculine, I see more of this work that's potentially happening right now. Working on the self. I want to say there's reorientation that's potentially occurring right now for some masculine in separation. And I think that some of that is the masculine saying, I'm looking at things in a way I haven't before. And I'm including myself in that journey. Now for the energy coming into divine union, almost the exact same thing that's happening. This is good. The energies are all coming into alignment right now again. A lot of this energy, feminine, and I want to stress this. What is a lot of the feminine energy doing right now coming into divine union? This is feminine energy trying to balance the emotions. And I want to say this isn't feminine energy putting on a fake volatility like point in relationality to their emotions, but this is the feminine that articulates through the emotions. They don't give the emotions to the masculine like a puzzle to solve. They articulate and they tell the masculine what the emotions ask for, right? And so we see even now like a lot of the energy of the feminine building into that sense or that space of getting better in terms of articulating, like informing upon, communicating what the emotions are asking for instead of directly allowing the emotions to speak for them. For masculine, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, this is a lot of the masculine energy working on some spaces of intimacy, being like, I hate this. Like I see a lot of the masculine going, I hate this, but it's working. You can hate something and recognize it's working. That's perfectly fine. Like you don't have to like it, right? While for the energy right now, deep within divine union, I just see even now, like these are the energies that are working on different fronts. Masculine very much in the practical space right now. Feminine very much in the planning or the communication phases right now. So we see even now, like there's a lot of that energy of just the fluidity of not necessarily needing to do the same exact things, but being able to arrive for each other in the way that we need when we need one another. That is sometimes a beautiful articulation of partnership, right? We talked about that space of compassion, which isn't necessarily thinking about what we need, but being very attentive to the energetic needs of the partner. Continuing to get clarification between our Death card in combination with our 10 of Wands in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Temperance card. This is kind of like, you know, this is what it is, because I know everybody was probably like really feeling it, really feeling a little bit of that roughness during that Aries energy, but you're probably feeling a little bit of peace right now, right? You know, because again, it's the mollification of the inner child to a certain extent. It really is. Like a lot of this energy that I'm seeing here right now, I got to stress this. This is like, and I want to put it this way, masculine and feminine energy, deep within divine union. The gift, the gift that we give one another is peace. Like the gift that we give one another is peace. So I see a lot of that energy that feels like if they look towards a counterpart and they see the fact that that counterpart, you're making it something energetically easier for the counterpart, that in itself is its own reward to a certain extent, right? While for masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now, it's a process. I just see the energy going, it's a process. I'm learning to process. So I see someone saying, I'm learning to process my emotions better. Either you see someone saying, I'm learning to process my emotions better. Or I see someone saying, I'm processing what was in my ability to change versus outside of the self to change. Right? And so both of those energies right now coming into divine union, and it could be either, you know, masculine and feminine releasing a lot of trauma in the past on the journey into divine union. And one energy is forgiving themselves for what they couldn't see within the self that they now see. And the other is forgiving themselves in relationality to over-internalizing something that was occurring to them and now receiving it in the present and getting that clarification that's helping them come into a state of peace. Because again, anything that led you into the journey of understanding is not separate to that path work. It was a part of it, right? And so this is a lot of energy holding grace and compassion for one another as they navigate forward from that point. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, in separation, I just see that a lot of this energy in separation right now is making peace with where they are right now. And I think that, and I don't mean that in a, I don't mean that in like a small way. I mean that in like a really big way. Because I feel like there's a lot of energy that is moving towards new energetic connections, not necessarily needing something, not necessarily seeking something, but being very energetically good. Like being energetically good. You know what I mean? Like just being in that state of contentment to a certain extent. Because this is not energy that is looking for something from the counterpart that they haven't found within the self. They're looking for energy that is amplifying what they've already found within the self. And that's the gift that we give one another, because when we find peace within ourselves, the gift we can give to our counterparts is the same peace that we can extend to them. So we see that a lot of this energy right now is in that point of balance, and they're being very discerning in relationality to building forth with an energetic connection that feels like they do same, right? And when you're navigating in that space, it feels like more of that pathwork of being very discerning, right? Because there's a lot of energy right now in separation that isn't necessarily seeking in partnership. They're working towards protecting their energetic peace. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Magician card and our Judgment card in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. clarification coming through right now with our Three of Swords, and it's upright. I'm not surprised to see this card here. Really not. Because again, we were talking a little bit, particularly prior to that, like right around that full moon that we received, in terms of something being energetically bittersweet. When we make peace with things, it's often energetically bittersweet, right? Because we take a lot of that anger, right? We take a lot of that anger and we move it into a space of grief. And then we energetically release the grief, right? So even in that state, you know, I see a lot of that energy that's doing so in a way. And I want to say this is a little bit more difficult right now for masculine energy. Bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to in separation. Because again, that state or that space, I see a lot of the masculine energy in separation almost articulating and saying to oneself, I am a constant student. And when we're in that space, and this is why, when we're in that space of releasing grief, being able to say to ourselves, I see a lot of the masculine articulating and saying, I am a constant student. Because that's a masculine that's reaffirming the fact that they're capable of learning. And when we're in that space of learning, we forgive ourselves. Because as long as we are doing something and we find that we see that modality of improvement, it doesn't require us to be energetically perfect, right? We can hold space for frustration on where we are, but also not lose hope in relationality to where we desire to be. And so a lot of this energy right now building into separation, coming into a point of catharsis. While for feminine energy right now, I see a lot of the feminine energy working through a lot of that same modality here. Because for a lot of the feminine energy in separation right now, so much of this work is the frustration between the difference between a masculine who may say that they desire something, but doesn't recognize what it effectively takes, right? And so both of these energies are healing and they're showing up to one another, carrying these wounds. Are they trying to mask them? Are they trying to say like, I don't know what happened, I was perfect? No, a lot of this energy is showing each other like where they've come from. They're showing each other those scars, and they're almost articulating and saying, despite my best efforts, despite everything I did, here is where I find myself. But there's something in that moment of coming into a space of being able to see one another clearly. There's a lot of that energy that feels that sense of healing in the process. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now. I just see a lot of this energy coming into divine union right now. It's messy. It's painful. I just see a lot of energy coming into divine union going, I hate this. I hate this. But saying it in a way, because sometimes healing hurts. Healing hurts. It really hurts. But that ability of navigating those energetic hurts together, not holding that hurt within, but articulating through it and saying to one another, this is hard, but saying it's hard for both of us. Recognizing and seeing and I want to say this, like the process. And I want to say this isn't something where we're seeing someone being like, oh, good, you're hurting for me. Hooray. No, this is the energy saying it's not the sense of doing that for the sake of another. This is the sense of the energetic connection point of really grieving together, healing together, having that moment of seeing one another's vulnerabilities that sometimes can feel, like the difficulty with intimacy is that it feels like it creates those spaces where there's nowhere to energetically hide, right? But this is the energy that's unpacking forward in that way, simply and specifically because these are the energetic connections that are working through those modalities that felt or created those spaces in the self where they felt like it wasn't safe to do so. While for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union, deep within divine union right now, this is just doing what one can and navigating along the way. And I see even now, I see that there's some kind of vibrations here of, you know, working through frustration. But even in those modalities of like working through frustration, there's a lot of patience, right? Because once, when you are really in that space of trying to do something, it's not a question of how, like when or how. It's just a question, like it's not a question of if, it's just a question of when. And so I see even now like a lot of that energy, navigating that point of release and relief, because this is the energy that, like, I want to say it's like it's a lot of that work in working through that space in such a way of like, not being hard on oneself in the process, continuing to get clarification between, and this is how the energy helps one another. Because if this is the energy that gets too hard on themselves, they act as a clear mirror and say, listen, like, and this is it. Judgment in its reversal in combination with our Ace of Wands, right? These are the counterparts that act as the energetic voice of reason towards one another, right? That's the gift. That's the gift of the healthy partnership. The energetic voice of reason, when you get too much in that space of being too harsh on oneself. Clarification point coming through right now. Hey, with the Hermit, like, hey, right here, don't get all lost within yourself. Keep your focus, because we're talking a lot about trajectory here. So a lot of that energy, even here, basically saying to one another, when I feel energetically lost, I know I can turn towards you, because that sense or that space of acting, and this is, I need to stress this isn't the energy deep within divine union that leans upon one another, but having that sense or that space of not being too energetically harsh on oneself. Having that like, almost, I see the counterpart saying to one another, I recognize and identify that when one goes into that modality of being too hard on themselves, the other one is being able to quickly affirm and reorient and help them get a better perspective, right? So the gift of the counterparts right now is giving that perspective. The energy coming into divine union is building upon having that perspective. And that can be very disorienting when it first occurs, because moving out of that sense or that space, having to do a little bit of work there, that sometimes it can feel frustrating, right? Because that's the energy that has notes for one another. But these aren't the energies saying like, this is your fault, you do this, you do that. This is the energy that says, I'm working on this. It would be helpful if, and you're working on that, and we're both working on different things. But the important thing is we're working on them together, and having that space of, again, and this is why we call it a modality, saying to someone, there's always that ability. It doesn't require you to be perfect. It just requires you to be invested in that. We see even now like a lot of that energy working on, there's a lot of energy right now coming into divine union that has to heal a lot of deep wounds from intimacy. And that's messy stuff, because when you're healing a wound of intimacy, it feels like that part of you that doesn't want to express something, and then you bring it out. So we see even now like a lot of that like energetic unpacking, if you will. It's like, I want to say the healthy discomfort, right? Now for masculine and feminine energy, in separation, so much of this energy in separation right now, this is how that point of catharsis is happening. Because I just see even now a lot of that energy. And we started our reading here. The feeling of confusion, but confusion with a trajectory, right? Like that's what partnership is to a certain extent. Healthy partnership can often feel like confusion with a trajectory. So we see even now that a lot of that energy isn't getting ahead of themselves. Like this is the energy that's not putting the cart before the horse. This is the energy that's saying, I want to make sure we're on the same trajectory, because I don't want to feel stranded again if we move forward and I suddenly recognize we're moving in very different directions. And this is, I want to say, even now, a lot of those energies in separation, having hard conversations with someone before even something energetically beginning, because there's a lot of energy that is prioritizing the condition of their heart and almost saying to one another, I can't take it again. Like, that's a lot of the energy saying, I can't take it again. But like, this is the energy when they say, I can't take it again. Remember, letting go of something, letting go of what's not for you in terms of moving towards what is. This is the energy that's prioritizing the direction, even if it feels like it might create momentary disappointment. Continuing to get clarification between our Ace of Wands in combination to our Temperance card in its upright. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Seven of Swords in its upright. Now, masculine and feminine energy in separation. I see even now like a lot of that energy in separation articulating and healing around frustrations in relationality to energy that didn't feel like they had the same trajectory, right? And so we see even there, that's why so much of this energy, I want to say, is being very fastidious in relationality towards not wanting to come into that spectrum of someone that feels like they're energetically waiting for someone, right? I can almost see a lot of this energy in separation saying, I want to make sure you're not in that space of energetically waiting for someone, because this is the energy that is articulating that a lot of that work, this is like the energy that's saying to one another, like even here, this is how deep some of that wound is, like this is the energy saying, I don't want to feel like you're prioritizing the waiting of another energetic person. This is the energy that even now I feel like a lot, like this is energy that's seriously, I want to say energy in separation, seriously unpacking past prior to forming into an energetic connection. Because this is the energy that basically articulates and says, I want to recognize and identify what was the reason of energetically departing from past experiences for the direct understanding of making sure that we're moving both on the same trajectory, right? Because some of this energy, I told you, is healing from a space or place of someone articulating that they desired something, but not necessarily having either the emotional wherewithal or like to be able to recognize what it takes to move towards a manifestation goal. So we see even now that for a lot of that energy navigating in that space, that ability of identifying that, this is the energy that's saying, more than anything, I prioritize the direction I'm going in because I don't want to go back to an experience wherein I want to have to learn the same energetic lesson again, right? This is the energy going, I'm not going that way. I'm not doing that again. While for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union, this is a lot of the energy that is perceiving, having to unpack the past in different ways because of the work they're doing in the present. And that's the energy that's either seeing the past through different optics or, and again, either one's own part in the past or what one experienced within that past that shifts one's own perception. While for the energy deep within divine union right now, this is a lot of, I want to say like, just being very, like being like there, I want to say a lot of the energy right now, deep within divine union is trying to do a lot at once. And if you're trying to do a lot at once and things like slip, like that's the energy that's saying you have to be kind to yourself in that process. Don't overly judge yourself for those moments you feel like you like energetically did not like arrive to one's own potential. Look instead at everything that you are carrying in the midst of that, right? Because we see even now that for so much of that energy, giving one another grace along the way is what is reaffirming. Continuing to get clarification between our Three of Swords in combination with our Hermit card in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification with our Nine of Cups in its upright. If that card looks familiar, it was a very important card in our last spread. You can see that. spread over on my Substack. We have the photo there. Again, a lot of bridge building right now. A lot of bridge building that's happening for energy and separation. It feels like a lot of that compassion. I just see a lot of this energy right now navigating those spaces with compassion. And it's not easy, right? Because I see that a lot of the energy right now in separation is very hard on themselves, right? I can just see that there's a lot of this energy in separation that feels frustrated in relationality to what they can change within versus what they experience without. But I do see that a lot of new potential connections are happening right now in separation. And it does feel like quality over quantity to a certain extent. There's a lot of that energy that is building, and it's slow. I see even now, like a lot of these new energetic connections are very slow, because I see that a lot of that energy is saying that that sense or that space, that trust is something that is earned. And you take it one step at a time, and you lay that foundation brick by brick. And so I see even now a lot of that energy is being very mindful in that trust process. Because the one vector that you give one another as it relates to trust is time, right? Trust, the only thing we really need to be able to validate trust is time. So this is not energy that tries to rush one another in that process, specifically and particularly because I see even now, if these are the energies that are healing from wounds of trust, or again, from wounds of someone articulating the desire for something, but not having or understanding what energetically something takes, this is a lot of that energy that is being very mindful as they go. While for masculine and feminine energy, that is coming into divine union right now. So much of this energy coming into divine union, I'm just recognizing and identifying that this is the energy that is healing in a deep, deep, profound way. And it doesn't require perfection. It requires recognition. Like, it requires that recognition of what it is that one can change. And a lot of that energy, I want to say, some of it is acceptance here. Like, some of it is acceptance. Some of it here is someone saying, I don't know if I'll ever be able to change that. Right? I can even see it here. I feel like there's some of this energy coming into divine union, hitting like a little bit of an energetic wall. But even in being able to say to someone, I don't know if I can ever change that. That's the energy that says, I am mindful of it. Right? So it's like, even there, some of that work is like recognizing one's own, and I like one's own boundaries, right? Like that, and even there, being able to articulate upon the nature of it, I can see it even there. There's some of that energy that feels like that's the acceptance point, or that sense of saying, well, that's where you are now, right? And so I see even here, so much of that work that's occurring is navigating where one finds oneself, what feels like it's in one's capacity to change, but also asking another for acceptance in relationality to the limitation that one finds oneself in, right? Because even there, that in itself, that recognition, like that's a lot of that energy. And I want to describe this. This doesn't feel like a standard. It feels like a comfortability point, right? Something that someone understands and feels like, I'd like to be able to heal that. I just don't know if I can yet, right? While for energy deep within divine union right now, this is just arriving for one another and providing what one needs in that moment. A lot of that work being able to be in that space. Like, these are the energies that don't necessarily need to move in that modality of completely being in lockstep, because this is the energy that appreciates that work that you're doing is different. Continuing to get clarification between our Hermit card in its reversal in combination with our Seven of Swords in its upright. One card to clarify. the clarification with our Six of Wands in its reversal. So again, more of this, I have to stress this right now. A lot of that energy within divine union, having breakthroughs right now. Like there's breakthroughs that are occurring. But even in these breakthroughs that are occurring, there's a lot of this energy that is navigating that feeling of, not necessarily, I want to say, this is the energy that doesn't, I want to say, it doesn't energetically prioritize the personal achievement because of so much of that energy in relationality towards what one is doing. So even in that space of navigating that, I see even now a lot of that energy hitting some of those energetic milestones right now, but then almost feeling that like that uncertainty in terms of how to navigate something to a certain extent, specifically and particularly because this isn't the energy that moves forward from a place of holding on to energetic personal achievement. That's more of that space of compassion to a certain extent. So I see even now a lot of that energy being supportive in a certain way that almost says to one another within divine union, it's okay to energetically celebrate oneself. It's okay to appreciate where you are, even if you feel that sense of never necessarily doing something as well as one would aspire to do it, because you're in that modality that you're always holding yourself to a higher energetic standard. So a lot of that energy is being compassionate to one another and helping one see one's own achievements. While for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now, I see a lot of forgiveness in this of the self that's occurring right now. And just that reminder that coming into divine union does not require you to be energetically perfect. None of us are energetically perfect. But this is the energy that says to one another coming into divine union, there's no one I would rather be imperfect with than you. And that is the energy that's even in that, I told you, even in that messiness or uncertainty, they're creating something beautiful, because this is the energy that feels that prioritization point, it isn't about where they're going. It's about being where they are fully. While for masculine and feminine energy right now in separation, I just see a lot of this energy in separation that's got and I want to say this, I told you, this is a releasing of the manifestation goal. A lot of energy being I'm fine where I am. This is probably I want to say I want to point this out, and this is really important to navigate. This is an energy that has given up hope. Okay? This is energy that feels hopeful where they are. This is energy in separation that doesn't look towards partnership from a place of aspiring for hope. This is the energy that's come into a place of comfortability with one's own self. That's that sense and space of, again, navigating to such an extent that says if it happens, great. But if it doesn't, cool. Right? That's the energy that goes, that's the sense of being I'm good either way, because this is the energy that's finding that process of appreciation within that they're bringing without. Final card for today's spread is, we have here our Eight of Wands in its reversal. Now, let's talk about this. So again, I told you, a lot of this energetic separation that we're potentially seeing right now, this is a lot of that work in terms of identify, and I need to stress this, often we experience this in energetic manifestation cycles. What we're available for is often a lot of that energy saying what they're not available for. And so I almost feel there's a lot of energy right now in separation, potentially even navigating new possible energetic connections from a place of articulation and I feel I want to say almost frank discussions in terms of what one is not invested upon. And I see even now, like a lot of that energy and separation, not really coming into that space of feeling like they need to like energetically please someone, because there's a lot of authenticity here. And this is a lot of that reaffirmation that I'm seeing for energy and separation, that feels that sense of self enough to say, if something that I articulate isn't for me, move someone away from me. Well, that's energetic protection, right? Like that's the energy going, well, there's the there's protection right there. That's the divine self that protects you in those modalities by moving to it and being like, okay, good job. Because I see even now a lot of those energies in separation, having those hard conversations first, ripping that Band-Aid off, like right at the onset. Because this isn't the energy that holds the breath and goes, I hope, I hope, I hope. This is the energy that says, I know, I know, I know. I don't want to build into a partnership that requires me to live in the breath of hope instead of the breath of energetic knowledge. Now, for masculine and feminine coming into divine union, this is overcoming the communication hurdles. And I need to stress this. This doesn't mean, when you're doing this work, it doesn't mean that communication is fluid. Sometimes when you're overcoming communication hurdles, it feels like nothing is energetically working because you're learning new ways to communicate. You're building those pathworks. You're building in so much of that it may feel like your relationship right now is a construction site, right? And when there's a construction site, it's a mess. It feels like everything's all over the place. You can't really figure out where anything is, but something's happening and something's productive because you've never done something like this before. And so we see even now, like a lot of that energy, feeling the frustration in communicating in ways that one hasn't before. That doesn't mean a negative. It feels like it's a positive because this is energy that is communicating in ways that they never have before. While for masculine and feminine, deep within divine union, this is just a lot of that energy that gives one another perspective. I just keep seeing a lot of this energy right now, giving one another clearer perspective, because I just see even now like a lot of the energy in divine union. Energetically, I want to put this out. Like this is the energy within divine union that never gets their hopes up, right? And so I feel like a lot of that energy in divine union is giving each other hope in that space. And the other one's like, meh, like a lot of that being like that, because this is the energy that like, again, works very much in the practical space. And in that way, the gift that the partner, the counterpart gives is that perspective. Bottom of the deck on this reading right now, especially with this Wheel of Fortune in its reversal. I just see even now that like for so much of that energy, how do I put this? Like, that work in terms of like, and I feel like this is happening right now across all of all of the frequencies. Wanting something to get energetically easier. And I know it's ironic in this fashion. In order for something to get easier, it has to get harder first, right? Everything can get easier, but it requires something to get harder first. So, and I know that sounds counterintuitive, but it's true. And so, I want to point this out. For a lot of the energy in separation, having that hard communication, right? That's a lot of that energy that feels like it's really hard because the energy is doing the hard thing first, but they know it's energetically productive because this is the energy saying better to have a hard conversation now than to move down something down the line and then recognize that we're moving in very different directions, right? Energy coming into divine union right now, much the same, because we're seeing even now that for a lot of that work that's being facilitated here, this is the energy doing something in a way that they haven't before, and it feels awful or it feels difficult, but they're experiencing breakthroughs, which is the energy saying, even though it's hard, doesn't mean that it's not working. While for masculine, that's healing. While for masculine and feminine energy that is deep within divine union, this is the energy that is tirelessly trying to work to make things easier, not just for themselves, but for those around them. And in that space, I need to point this out, and this is why you got to do this with a little bit of grace. There's always something that you can put one's effort in that way. So make sure that you're prioritizing care of the self in the process, because that energetic work in terms of making something easier, it's effectively endless. You know, like there's always going to be somewhere you can put that energetic work on. There's always going to be a note. So, be kind to yourself on the way. That is where is our daily collective read for today. I want to thank you guys so much for being here and receiving it. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, you can book one on my website, strega.com. Please keep in mind, if you book a private reading with me, it is a 2-step process. You have to book the reading, you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you'd like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever, 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 ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never DM you. I will never PM you. I will never slide into your inbox and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my website. So I encourage you to do it there. A couple of updates before we move into the personal readings for today. First and foremost, thank you to everyone who attended my Lovers class a few weeks ago. Our next class will be held on Wednesday, November 13th at 6 p.m. PST, 9 p.m. Eastern. We will be continuing our studies into the tarot with a focus on the Chariot card. I'm excited to teach this card because I feel like it's often misinterpreted. If you are interested in becoming a part of that class program, all you need to do is head over to my Substack, graystrega.substack.com. Your paid subscription to my Substack will grant you access and entry into our live classes each month. You will also have access to the full repository of our previous classes. So now is a perfect time to join, because you've got a little bit of a window and you've got about 7 hours of material to catch up on. It's not required to catch up all at once. It's there for when you're ready for it. I will be giving a recap in each class prior to us beginning on what we've studied thus far. You'll also have access to a one-on-one chat with me and the other students to ask any questions that you may have in relation to anything that we've learned thus far. And if you become a founding member to my Substack, not only will you receive a discount on the full year's worth of classes, but you will also receive a complimentary mentorship class with me. That is a private one-on-one class where we sit down and I find out where you are on your own personal tarot journey so that I can give you the best insights in terms of how to utilize those classes most effectively going forward. Also, if you are a subscriber here to my TikTok, if you head over to our subscriber-only Discord channel, which is available in your perks, you will find there a coupon code that will give you a discount to each month's classes. So make sure that you head over there if you're just subscribing for the first time. Even if you don't become a paid subscriber to my Substack, I would encourage you to follow me there to stay up to date on any new offerings, services. I post my weekly newsletter there, which will let you know about my in-person events as well as my live schedule. It'll also let you know about our giveaways. Speaking of giveaways, we are in the process of having our giveaway for October. If you would like to potentially win a free private tarot reading with me, all you need to do is head over to the link tree in my bio. There's a 2-minute travel survey there. Filling out that travel survey will grant you an entry into the giveaway. But if you want to increase your chances of winning, go ahead and forward that survey to a friend, because when I pull the winner, I will be gifting a reading not only to the person that wins the giveaway, but also to the individual that referred them. So I want to thank you so much if you've already entered. Thank you for that beautiful gift. And I hope that you win this month. Finally, I want to let you know that on top of my standard readings, I also offer mentorship classes. These are for individuals who are seeking a more customized learning experience from me. I take a very limited number of students for this reason. They can be focused on whatever area of personal growth or spiritual development you are most interested in pursuing. I take a very limited number of students for that reason. You can purchase these classes individually or as a monthly class series. That is 4 45-minute classes, one per week over the span of a month, or bi-weekly as your schedule allows. Also, for my clients that are seeking more consistent tarot support, I'm very happy to offer weekly tarot insight packages. That is a package of 4 30-minute readings, weekly or bi-weekly, as your schedule permits, so that you can stay more consistent on your personal journey. Also, I want to let you know that we now have moderator applications open. If you've ever been interested in becoming a moderator for me here on TikTok, head over to my Substack. There's a link at the top of my page, or you can email me directly at gracestrega@gmail.com. Our moderation program has a very comprehensive give back program, free readings in exchange for your service and help as moderators. I deeply appreciate that. You also become a part of our moderator collective, and I like to say that they are some of the best moderators one could hope for. Beautiful group of people. Looking forward to potentially having you join us. I hope you guys have an absolutely beautiful day. Please take care of yourselves. Please take care of one another, and we will do this again tomorrow.